Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of the In Perspective show. The temperature here in New York City currently is 61 degrees. Yesterday was a particularly warm day in New York. Well, I should think I should say it was a hot day. I think based on what I saw last night, it was the first major beach day of the season. Was the first major beach day of the season. I know when the beach days start because on Sunday evenings on my way to work, the traffic is usually ridiculously heavy. And those persons who were following on the live stream last night would have realized that the traffic was way heavier than it would normally be on any night. But from here on, unless there's a rainstorm, that's what it's going to be like on Sunday nights. Very heavy traffic because Sunday is the day when everybody flock to the beaches. Um, Today you should have good weather in Guyana. I didn't check it before, but I guess the weather's going to be nice. And I encourage Guyanese to uh, continue to make good use of the weather. We have an information-based program today where we are going to more or less we're going to continue the trend that we started having conversations with the regional chairpersons who are in charge of the regions that were won by the APNU AFC at the last elections. And today we are stopping by in region number 4. The last time we discussed things pertaining to region number 4, the discussion was very brief, sort of, because the chairman of the region, who was our guest on that show, had to leave to attend a very important meeting. Today, of course, he has a very busy schedule again, as is usual, because Region 4 is the largest administrative region in Guyana. That's number one. And number two, it is the most important region insofar as the politics is concerned. That's the region that the PPP really wants to win, so that our leaders in the region have to be on their toes all the time, on the ball, on their toes all the time. So I know the regional chairman has to attend to his several responsibilities, but he has afforded us some time this morning to be on our show to give us an update on things in Region 4. So we would like to welcome Comrade Mr. Um, Major Daniel Seeram, Chairman Region number 4, back to the In Perspective show. And to you, how are you today?
Hi, morning, Bradford, and thank you for having me on your show as always. This morning it's quite all right in Georgetown here. I haven't departed for work as yet. It's always a pleasure to be on your show, and good morning to our viewers out there from wherever you're viewing from. Of course, you know Region Four, as you rightfully said, it's not the largest administrative region in size, but with regards to the population, we have just over 311,000 people in Region 4. And also, we have persons passing through Region 4 for whatever issue. And yes, Region 4 is the political powerhouse of Guyana. So I am very privileged to be at the helms of Region 4. And as you rightfully said, we have a number of issues that we're having in Region 4, along with um, so the government of the day in some areas just are very reluctant.
Yes, so as we would know, I served in Region 4 in several capacities. I taught in Region 4 for a number of years. Then I served in the regional accounts unit for a while. There was one time I was serving as the regional votes clerk. Then I served. I went on. I moved on, and I went into deep sea politics, and I worked with Mr. Monroe for a little bit. So I have a good idea of what things are like in Region 4. I have known, however, that the relationship between the PPP administration and the regional administration is not always as husband and wife. It's not necessarily a bed bad relationship. And like I said in the introductory remarks, I know that some of our chairpersons are having a tough time dealing with the government's method of governing. They have been stymieing progress in the regions. But before I come to that, I like to deal with the issue that is hot, the COVID-19 situation. What is the situation like in Region 4? I thought that Region 4 was not the most badly affected region, but I'm getting the impression, based on what some people are telling me, that most of the cases are in Region 4. I've been trying to explain that away. Some people are not buying it from me, so they may buy it from the regional chairman. How are you
Well,
managing that?
well, I haven't had the figures them as of today, so I don't want to quote the wrong numbers. But just statistically wise, region number four, because of the population in region four, we have quite a high number of areas. We have the biggest hotspots for COVID-19 in region four, both on the East Bank, the East Coast, and within Georgetown. There are some villages that we single out. By the end of today, if you visit my Facebook page, you will have a good synopsis as to what is going on specifically in Region 4. What we find happening is that Region 4 accounts to 52% of the overall deaths in the entire country. That is how severe that we're hit in Region 4. Since the beginning of March to now, we would have noted for the weeks that would have passed a great increase each week, in which whereby we're anywhere between 600 to 850 cases per week, new active cases per week, right? In some of I divide the region between the East Coast, the East Bank, and Georgetown, and sometimes you have, in one of those areas, we have over 300 active cases of COVID, which is not a very good sign for Region 4. And that is why we continue the shout, for everyone to go and get vaccinated, to wear your mask, practice social distancing, sanitize, and avoid gatherings. What we find is that some of the soft measures that the government today is using isn't doing us any justice in terms of helping us curb the bend. In order to combat COVID-19, apart from just the vaccines, which do not the vaccine don't do not prevent you from getting COVID, or it doesn't um, cure you from COVID. But however, it boosts your system enough so that if you do contract COVID, you get a mild form of COVID, and it prevents you from deaths, dying. What we see here in Region 4 is that we need some stricter measures. I'm always an advocate for stricter measures. As I walk through the communities, and so you find that um, there's a lot more education that can be done on the COVID-19 issue, and on other issues that are affecting the region. For some reason or the other, we, we find that simple issues, not only COVID-19 related, but um, other issues that would impact the communities are starved of this information. And myself, along with councillors and the member of parliament, the opposition member of parliament, have been going out to eradicate the ignorance that is out there, and to bring clarity to the people within the different communities.
That's important. I've been trying to do a lot in that regard as well. I mean, promoting the need for Guyanese to be careful, observe the protocols, and so on. But I find that for some strange reason, our government counterparts are reluctant to give us the kind of push, the impetus that we need to be able to be more effective in helping Guyanese to live and to overcome this disease. For example, I've been asking the Minister of Health for the longest while to make an appearance on the show and just understand it's not going to be political in any way, shape, or form. We're just dealing with health, strictly health. We're not going to be looking at who was responsible for what or who caused what. Strictly, what is the plan right now? What have we been doing? What can we do to reduce the impact of this virus on the Guyanese society? And he has not been willing to come on board. I'm not sure why that is so. But in relation to the numbers, I know that you said that you don't have the the current figures. I have been telling people that, in my opinion, one of the reasons why Region 4 is more severely impacted is because For example, you have quite a large number of gold miners from Region 4 who are working in, let's say, regions 9, 7, 8, or wherever, and then they come back. They're contracting the virus up there, and then they come back down into Region 4 to their homes. They infect other people in their families, and the circle extends and or expands as the interaction continues. So, to me, that is one of the bugbears that you have to deal with in Region 4. Additionally, my understanding is that the rule of law, as has been laid down, is what is good for you is not necessarily what applies for me. So you, the rank and file people in Region 4 or in Guyana per se, are required to adhere to the protocols. The late nights, you're not allowed to be at parties and large gatherings. But in some areas that are not necessarily pro APNU AFC supportive areas, the people are allowed to do whatever they want and no action is taken. How are you dealing with that if that is true?
Well, first of all, the traveling between regions is something that we would have looked at the national level. It was brought even to some regions who are saying that they didn't want persons from outside of the region to travel to those regions. But that is not a decision that the regional democratic councils could take because the national gazette is what takes precedence. So we're very limited in how we could actually enforce some things that are region specific.
Mhm.
What we find happening right now is that yes, in the beginning we would have found a lot of errant persons just flouting the COVID-19 guidelines, especially the National Gazette. But then we would have appealed for stricter measures, and then some places were actually suspended from businesses for a month. And I'm pleased to report that the Guyana Police Force, the regional divisions within Region Number 4 have actually upped the bar very high in dealing with COVID-19 enforcement. So what we find is that most of the places that you would have driven past and seen that a lot of persons were in front, um, this would have decreased. It's happy to see the decrease, but I'm looking forward for more of a decrease. We find that between the hours of 9:30 to 10:30, a lot of business are in the practice of being closed on time.
Mhm.
We find this coming out of somewhat of the harsh measures of suspending a business for 1 month, which is not very profitable to that business. So it is something that we are monitoring. This is what I'm appealing to the government that sometimes these harsh measures are what we need to curb COVID-19. At any point in time, it's a no-brainer, right? The vaccine alone would not um, curb the numbers for COVID-19, but strict measures would curb the numbers. We have to decrease the amount of persons in rotation, in movement at any point in time. Public servants, which make up for the majority of the workforce, they should be put back on a shift system, put back to only a certain percentage of public servants to be at work. And so something that peeves me is public transportation. We continue to allow a minibus to have 100% capacity. I mean, there's no way you can social distance in a minibus at 100% capacity, and just wearing a mask alone wouldn't suffice. So there are definitely some things going awry. And as I look at it, every week we make an appeal to the National COVID Task Force. Actually, this morning I'll be in that meeting at 11:30 to make similar appeals, right? And we're pushing in various directions, and the health officials are trying their utmost best. I know that in Region 4, we just completed the drive-through vaccination site, which was a very good initiative by the regional health officer in the region, in which you could have gone to the Providence station, driven through, got your vaccination, and be happily on your way. And also, as we go to the communities and we realize and we give them the necessary education, the requests are being made for vaccination sites in which I've been able to coordinate for some communities thus far. And this is something that we're looking to do as we eradicate the ignorance of some persons. That we put the necessary steps in place for them to access the facilities. that they need to get these vaccines. And this is something that we are doing at the regional level. My colleague MPs from the opposition parliament are out and about and getting people to understand what is needed, because if the government of the day doesn't understand the strict measures that are needed, then we must be the ones preaching it to our Guyanese to safeguard themselves. Um, you see, at this point in time, there's no savior coming, right?
Hmm.
So we, the leaders, need to step up, get out there and start commanding and basically explaining what is right from what is wrong. And I understand that there's a lot of things out there that persons don't understand. Some absurdities when it comes to vaccination and so on. Sometimes I wonder, but then you look at the face of the individual you are, and they're very serious about what that just told you. So we do take the time, and we do go through it thoroughly with our supporters and our citizens, as a matter of fact. And we will continue on this stride. I mean, health is wealth, and this is something that we take pride in, that we take care of our people. I mean, we don't have to be in the best position, but whatever position that we're in, and the small resources that we're given, you can ensure that all of those resources go directly to the people. And that is what they put us here to ensure to happen. And apart from the COVID-19 pandemic we have in the region right now, we're having countless issues with educational deliveries. Right?
Hmm.
We in the region would have been advocating for every child to have a tablet. And actually, yesterday I had the privilege of walking with the Honorable Catherine Hughes in my outreach in Enmore, and she was telling me that at her ministry, telecommunications, that their goal was to, by 2021, this year, every single child, school age child, would have had access to a free tablet from the government, because we would have put in place ICT hubs in every community, giving them free internet. So we were way beyond the thinking, and this was done pre-COVID. And so this was the smart classrooms, along with the tablets, along with the free internet access. This is not something that just came about. This is something that the APNU AFC government was building on in the five years that we were in government. By now we would have been in a better position to deal with COVID. Right now we have severe issues that are going on here, Mr. Bob.
Hmm.
When you walk to the communities, many persons want to know that if the child will be left behind if they don't have access to the online stuff, because they find it very difficult to have they find it very difficult to access the internet. The internet isn't something that is steady, and something that is very standard in some areas. And then right now we're back into the age of blackouts. Blackout very rampant. I mean,
Hmm.
we had facilities within the last 5 years in which I can't even remember the last 5 years when we had a blackout. And so certain things have returned under this new government, and we're looking forward, because we need, and I think that the government should reach out to us. The government should reach out to us and should engage us for meaningful discussion, to be meaningfully appraised as to what is going on, so you can make informed decisions. This whole spur of the moment initiative, and so it isn't there. And what most of the persons of in the streets, the man in the street, the grassroots man, is telling me, that the government should come out of the campaign mode that they're in and actually focus on governance. And this is not what we're seeing coming out here, because trust me, as much as all of us are political creatures, right? But we are rearing and ready to serve the people, right? And we do not have to compromise to serve the people, because if it's in that general hope to bring a better life to all Guyanese, then we would put aside our differences to do so. But for some reason or the other, the current government doesn't see it that way. And every single initiative that would have been brought up by one of our MPs in the budget debate was looked aside, because it's labeled an AP and UAFC initiative, when it was actually the better course of action to use than something that the government is doing right now. Simply put, and I ain't stealing your show here, Mr. Borg, but these are the things that we're going on. I govern the largest region in terms of the resources allocated to it. And now we find that the government is going to put more monies into beautification projects. Why? In a time of COVID, when we're supposed to find ways to get money directly back into the pockets of the Guyanese,
Yeah.
because with the COVID-19 pandemic, there are many other issues that come out. You have issues relating to economics, because you sometimes coming out of last year, your parent would have had a job. Parents would have had a job. Then now
Right.
probably one parent alone has a job, and for some cases, nobody in the household has a job. So they're
Hmm.
living by the grace of God in some areas, right? I mean, in from the diaspora, a lot of persons were helping Guyanese here, but the diaspora was also hit.
Yes.
And with COVID, COVID was an international issue. So rather than finding willy-nilly projects, right, and policies that really wouldn't serve the best interests of the people, right, I think that we have to return to that one big have a sit down, and come up with meaningful solutions to the issues that we have at hand. Why can't we come up with better grants instead of just giving a man a $25,000 off in COVID, which was poorly handled from the beginning to the end, right? And still being poorly handled as we speak currently.
Hmm.
And we find ways of getting the Guyanese people prepared for the new industries that are on the rise. We have a whole revamping of the agriculture industry. We have a brand new petroleum industry coming in. Why can't we set our people in line in order for them to become small business owners, right?
Hmm.
When we were in a lockdown phase last year under the AP and UAFC, a lot of Guyanese would have channeled that inner entrepreneur. And now it's proud to see that a lot of Guyanese would have opened businesses, and they would have thriving businesses. But of course, the cost of living has gone up. Living has gone up significantly. And everywhere you walk and you go, the man on the street is telling you this, because they can compare the bills from December, January, February, March. And when they look at the bills now, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Cost of fuel is on is on the rise every single day that you look at it is a dollar, $2 more up. It adds up when you have to buy a whole tank of gasoline or diesel.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, there's so many things that we need to be addressing at this point in time. And I think that if we do not address them soon, then persons will reach their zenith in how much they can actually take. Oh, it's rather frustrating, right? People are in the mode right now in which they're just going with the flow, but sooner or later it will come to a point whereby society will have to take a stance, and we
Hmm.
will have to demand more of the government of the day, right? Demand more of them in terms of educational delivery, demand more of them in terms of health services, demand more of them in terms of meaningful infrastructure. And I'm speaking specifically now to drainage and irrigation infrastructures. Right?
Uh-huh.
You know, when you sit in any seat in government, any part of leadership, you always come up with ideas to make better for the people so that it can directly impact the people, right? Because once the people are positively impacted, right, then the country is run better, right? Now we only find that it's deals on wheels right now going on in Guyana, right? In
Hmm.
terms of everybody outside is coming in to try to get a piece of Guyana, and it's being sold off at below market prices behind closed doors. And
Wow.
this is something that our senior politicians must look into. I know that they're aware of it, but they must look into. And I'm here as a guy because I've been a public servant 12 years in the military, and this is going on to the 14th year now. I've been a public servant, right? And I'll continue serving the Guyanese people because this is the way that I could find to meaningfully give back to them. For everything that I would have earned by being a public spirited Guyanese, just here to ensure that we have the good life, and we move on to having a better life once we have more resources given to us. But handling a COVID-19 situation, it's multifaceted. And a lot of Guyanese, we don't look into the mental health of the average Guyanese person. We see everyone smiling and so forth, but underneath, you don't know what is going on.
True.
People aren't comfortable wearing a mask, but they have to do it right now, right, to protect themselves and to protect their loved ones. We want to go back to a level of normalcy, but there are some strict things that we must do to go back there. There are countries right now that are going into a third lockdown that have less numbers than we the Guyanese people because they foresee what could happen if they're very callous about the decisions that they make. And I noted that last week, a government official, senior government official, came out and said that we're no way looking at at the next lockdown for Guyana. So it's an open sepulchre. Whatever happens, happens. And the same government official basically said people will die. And this was since last year. And let me give you the correlation, Mr. Bork. The correlation is this between the handling of COVID 19. Right? The first imported case of COVID 19 in Guyana was on the 5th of March 2020, right? That came into the country. The first positive test for COVID 19 was on the 10th of March 2020. The first COVID death, right? COVID 19 positive death was on the 11th of March 2020. And if I may be stand correct, but I think on that day, on the 11th of March 2020, was the day that the WHO announced that COVID 19 is an international pandemic. Right? Now, within the 5 months of the AP and UAFC government handling the COVID 19, right, until August the 2nd, right, but I don't count in August the 2nd, and until August the 1st, 2020, the coalition would have only sustained 20 deaths, 5 months, 20 deaths, right? The PPP government was installed on the 2nd of August 2020 and would have taken over all of the task force. And in their 5 months, right, brings you to January the 2nd, 2021, right? The death toll was 164 persons would have died at that point in time. When you do the subtraction, is 144 persons would have died in the first 5 months of the PPP taking government. And so that correlation only speaks volumes. I mean, yes, probably you can say the amount of positive cases are there because of more tests being done. Indeed, more tests are being done now because we would have had a functioning government to some extent and a budget to go out and do more testing and so. But how do you account for the deaths? Right? How do you account for having over 400-500% increase in deaths? Right? So these are some of the issues, Mr. Borg, that we're dealing with here in the beautiful place that we call Guyana. And as the government of the day gets their act together, right, and comes to the fold, and all stakeholders and partners come together, and we have better policies coming forward to protect Guyana. We can't be just going willy-nilly shooting into the dark and ask the cost or making rash decisions, right? This is a Guyana for all Guyanese, and everyone should have an equitable distribution when it comes to resources. And here at the region, this is what me and my councillors are striving for, and the regional MPs as well are looking on at. I mean, for the 2020 and the 2021 budgets, right? The government of the day didn't give the Regional Democratic Council any sort of major input into that budget. Right? Most of the projects that we would have submitted for the various constituencies, right, that were submitted by councillors on both the PPP side and the AP and UAFC side. And we would have found a very small percentage, if any, of those projects being taken into consideration to go out. Right?
Wow.
Right now, one of the main things that I would have liked seeing done in Region 4 is farm to market roads, right? In which I'm now hearing that they don't see the necessity for farm to market roads. So I'm wondering what really is the thinking of the government, because we're currently in a pandemic and we want to bring down the cost of living. So if you make better roads to the farmers, then they have their overheads come down tremendously in terms of transportation to bring out produce. Right? And these are simple ways of mitigating some of the circumstances we're living under. The other evening, I was listening to the former minister Winston Jordan, and he did say yes, there's a the current cost of living is a compounding issue, right? Internationally, nationally, locally. But then, if nationally and locally we have ways to mitigate some of these issues, then why aren't we doing so? Why
Precisely.
aren't we, why aren't we putting more resources and putting more brain power, right, into areas that could actually alleviate certain things for the normal man, right? Um, certain infrastructural developments that I see going on, right? I don't believe that they should have been so high on priority because there are very much other areas in and around Region 4 that we need more emphasis on, right?
Hmm.
Under the APNU AFC government, they would have cleaned up the entire Georgetown, cleaned up the entire Georgetown in less than the first 2 years in government. And then we would have seen a very great reduction in flooding. And now we're back to Georgetown being quote unquote the garbage city. Right? And this is mainly because the government has not given Georgetown municipality their subventions for 2020 nor 2021. Right?
Wow.
And my colleague, the mayor, right, is having a hell of a time at his city council because the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development are making all kinds of issues and all kinds of excuses not to give them the resources that they have to get to deal with certain um, issues that are a priority in the city, right? Um, Simple contracts that we're looking at in terms of cleaning and maintenance of landscape and drains in the cities were withheld from the city. And then all of a sudden now you find that the ministers are out there in the communities giving away hundreds of contracts that should have been given out since the beginning of the year so that persons could have known periodically that the city would have been maintained. But now you find the 50-50 independence coming out. So it looks as though the government is doing something and stepping in to save the main city council. They're not
Hmm.
stepping in to save the main city council. The main city council has been deprived of what they had to get in order to ensure that all of those mechanisms were in place. So that coming to the 55th anniversary, they didn't have to do no big cleanup because the place would have already been cleaned and
Right.
fully maintained. But these are the political gimmicks that we find happening here currently. And it is not only to one town council, it's probably to all of the APNU AFC controlled town council, as well as what is happening with the APNU AFC controlled RDCs and NDC. And so, we're here to serve.
Yep. I realize that there is tremendous hardship. I um I wanna piggyback on the statement that you made in relation to the farm to market roads. I have observed that there's, I know it might be out of your administrative jurisdiction, but I just want to highlight it a little. This is issue with the farmers at the back of, I think it is Rijnveld, where the farmers have um, active farms that have produce in the farms right now. Some of them are there ready to be reaped, and it would seem as though the government is sacrificing those farms in order to construct the or put infrastructure in place for housing schemes. Now, there are two things that I'm looking at: the destruction of the crops as one, that's one, and two, um, increasing the or supposedly increasing the number of housing facilities being made available to people. What I do know from my service at Hasington Grove NDC in the capacity of overseer while I was there for a little bit, well, for a number of years, is that every time during the tenure of the previous PPP administration, every time they open an area for housing development, um, the intent is to create a demographic change because they subtly inject more of their people, their supporters from their stronghold communities into those communities with the intent that they will change the demographics and eventually win Region 4. So, like I said, there are two things. The farmers are being deprived of their livelihood, and then there's a plan, the continuing plan to change the demographics. How big a say do you have as regional chairman in the allocation of those house lots in those schemes that fall under Region 4?
Well, the system of government that we have in place doesn't really give the RDC any say over the allocation of house lots. This is primarily being done by the Ministry of Housing and Water, right? And after they would have finished, then they would have handed those back to the region, in which we would hand it over to the local government authority in that area, whether it be an NDC or a municipality, right? The allocation of house lots, I hear you loud and clear on that issue, right? And that will be specifically done by the central government at the ministry level. We always know what is going on there. During the APNUAFC time, we never saw such long lines and people going and sit in front of housing. We never saw such long lines of people in front of the passport office trying to run away from Guyana,
Yeah.
right? Right. So I mean, we don't have to say much. The evidence is there. It speaks for itself, right? But you see, certain things that we find that the government is doing is quite, it's quite worrisome, because you just don't want to bulldoze somebody's livelihood, right? Even with dealing with squatters, we saw how they dealt with the squatters in success. I was out there myself, right? And we generally have a problem in Guyana with squatting, right? Persons go in and utilize government reserves or land that do not belong to them. And I think that we have to have a national discussion on it, right? In terms of how to remove these people, because you just can't move a man and tell you where will he go. He has to have an alternate area to go, and especially if that's his livelihood, right? And he was planting there, you can justify that he was there for a reasonable period of time. Then the government should have had meaningful consultation with them, and then being able to send him to an alternate location. Right? I'm all for development, Mr. Paul. Right? Sitting right here as a young man in politics, I see development is the way to go. But there are certain parameters and criteria you have to do before you go and do it. As I said before, you just can't go shooting in the dark willy nilly, right? And say, I want this done and make it happen. No, there are certain things for those areas you should have gone and get the mayor involved, right? Have
Yeah.
the mayor sit down with or the councillors for Georgetown, but you find that the government doesn't want to get involved with the mayor or the councillors. They prefer to go directly to the people, and the people are rejecting them because of the way and the manner in which they carry themselves when they go to certain areas, right?
Hmm.
I mean, the minister went into East Rhineville, and at the bottom of the pamphlet had you had to be respectable to the minister, right? But if
Hmm.
he went to another community, he would have never even handed out a pamphlet like that. So are you saying that certain people you must control them by any means necessary, and they cannot? I mean, here we are, and the evidence is glaring. Every time you look at social media or something like that, you see exactly what is going on, right? You hear of initiatives that are coming, and you're wondering, was this actually well thought out, or was somebody in the bathroom and just had an idea, right?
Hmm.
Because we're not getting the feeling as citizens, as leaders, right, that these initiatives went through a thought process to arrive at something that was cleared up. Because many of the factors we don't have, right? They said that schools would be opening for face-to-face learning by March, April of this year. I was against it because logistically we didn't have everything in place. Teachers have to be trained. The schools themselves have to be fitted differently to have face-to-face learning, right? And we have to look at public transportation and persons going back, and also you have to look at the economic constraint that will go on the family to send back people to school. So you have to look at uniform grants. You have to look at book grants. You have to look at meals allowance for children, because these are the things that we have to be doing right now. This is the thought process that we must have right now. Yes, it will take a lot of money, but the money going back to the people. So again, a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Now we hear again that schools are set to be open in September, right? We are the region who control the entire regional education system, right? For thousands of students within the region, we as the councillors weren't consulted on this, right? I don't know if they consulted the mayor in Georgetown about it, but then you just hear these things coming up. Where is your consultation? Where was your stakeholders meeting? Where was it allowed for persons to vent? Did you meet with with a focus group of parents to find out what is going on. Right? Do you know the strains of a parent right now in terms of if they can cope with going into their pockets to sending children to school again? They do put transportation in place for the child to get to and from school in a COVID time, or do you want them to go in the same minibus with 100% capacity of persons? Right? Being exposed to everything. Right? So here we are, Mr. Burke, and I'm making an appeal that proper consultations must be done in order for certain policy decisions to be fruitful. And if we do not have those meaningful consultation with all persons from all walks of society, right, again, it will be shooting in the dark, right? No profit, right? I will be just wasting millions of hard-earned taxpayers' money, right, on projects that will ultimately become white elephants.
So true. I want to jump on another thing. So time is quickly slipping by. In terms of works, your works plan for the constituency, um, Region Four is the most important, or has the most important road corridor in Guyana, because Guyana has one airport, one
Mhm.
international airport. Well, I mean
Two
airports.
right now.
Well, I don't know. One time you're hearing them saying that Ogle is an aerodome. Next time you hear them saying, oh, it's an
No, it's
international
Eugene
airport.
Correa International Airport now, so they're taking international flights as well.
Okay, but both of them are in Region Four. So if
Yes.
you want to get into Guyana, anywhere in Guyana, you have to travel through Region Four to get to your destination. And I know that the roadways in some areas are not the best. The AP and UFC government did a lot of work on the roads in region on the east coast of Demerara. To some extent, some amount of work was done on the east bank, but the road surfaces are deteriorating, and I am seeing that the government is boasting about works being done on some roads. How many roads have you been able to, or how many of your road projects have you been able to actually do? And of all those roads that are being named by the government as projects they're controlling, how many are actually theirs and how many are yours?
Well, I didn't come specifically prepared this morning to speak on the topic, right? But
Mhm.
I can get the information to you, and I can even return to give you an update on it, right? But what I can tell you is that most of the roads that we would have submitted, right, I did not see it come out in the budget.
Wow.
And here again, we didn't do a top-down approach to choosing the roads for the areas,
Hmm.
right? We would have sent down to the NDCs to get these roads that were of priority for them to be done, right? And then we would have checked the listing of priorities at the level of the RDC and submitted these to put in the budget. And now we have roads that are being done in some communities whereby they didn't need a specific road at the time in terms of the priority level. I mean, everyone will say that their road is a priority to be done, right? But we as persons who have a more holistic view of what is going on in the region, we know that there's some areas that are more deteriorated than some. And
Right.
this is how we would have prioritized the roads to be done. Um, I was walking in Enmore yesterday. I was glad to see that some roads that we would have put in would have been done in Enmore, right? But then some residents were complaining that they only did half the work. So that's one of my task force thing this morning as I get into office to look into what is being done with the unfinished roads, right?
Hmm.
Um, I got some complaints also for the neighboring villages of Haslington, right? That roads need to be done. I know that we did put some roads to be upgraded in Haslington and Beirut and a couple other the areas, but to this date, nothing has been done. We're looking at the government and going like, why? You're updating roads in specifically your stronghold in which it wasn't time for them to be upgraded. Yes, they would have been somewhat used, but they haven't been deteriorated to the level that they should have been put very high on the priority, right?
Hmm.
Don't get me wrong, I'm always pleased to hear that development is being done.
Right.
But if we're going to say that we have a finite budget, right, and that we must do best practices in spending those monies, And then we have to look at the areas of greater concern, right? We can't have persons living in certain areas, right? Um, having to go through the road systems that are currently in place, right? It's always mind-boggling to me that there's only one major road coming from the airport to Georgetown, right? It's glad to see that the bypasses are being made, right? Yes, they did invite us at the region for those bypasses, and we did make our contribution in terms of you know what we wanted to see and so forth. And one of the areas that we're looking at right now is actually having a proper drainage system set up before the fact and not after the fact,
Right.
because as they're cutting across the communities, right, they're hitting certain key canals that are needed to drain off farmlands. And this is something that I would have only requested last week, that we have a multi-stakeholder meeting between the RDC, the ministry, the municipality, NDIA, and the NDCs within the area, right?
Hmm.
To trash out exactly how we're going to do their drainage and irrigation network. And this is the type of leadership that we want. We want to be forward thinking. We want to understand that when these communities and this road is being built, right, then these communities would not go through a flooding issue, in which that's a big issue here in Region 4 that we have. Every time I hear the rainfall nighttime, I just pray that in the morning that the community isn't flooded.
True.
I remember as I took office, the people of Monrepo, just the second week in office, would have had a flood because of some technical issues, and over 300 persons were affected by that flood. And we can't have a repetition of that ongoing in the region. So I would have um, put a personal undertaking to always go and check these facilities, check these pumps, check the sluices to ensure as soon as we find anything going awry, we calling the engineers, we calling the NDI, we let them know that this needs to be fixed immediately. We have that very good relationship in which we find that we don't have that, but Garchum is a whole other issue, right? Because they're literally stymieing the main city council, as I said before.
Hmm.
So those works, right, are being left undone. And then now the government comes in like if they're Superman on a cape with a cape and basically says that we will do the work for you. But if you would have been giving the people the money all the time, then the works would have already been done. And people would have so basically you allow the situation to deteriorate, right? To get political mileage for something that you could have, you know, um, something that you could have stopped from happening in the first place.
So true. I recognize too, and as we wrap up, because I know, like that, like I said before, you've got to run,
Yes,
and you've got a busy day ahead of you. I've observed that there was a serious problem um, developing in the. I think it's the what's that, the Lusignan area. No, it's not Lusignan. What's that, Montrose? Is it Montrose? I think Montrose. Good Hope, rather. The Good Hope area where the burial ground is. There was a complaint, and I did see the now famous for negative things, Mr. Critic, Guyanese Critic, highlighting the problem where some developer there was taking in sections of the Good Hope burial ground and even apparently covering some tombs. Did the regional administration know of this situation, and was any step taken to ensure that no law was broken there?
we were appraised of the situation, right? And councillors did go out and check on it. However, that situation would have been remedied by the NDC within the area,
Okay,
right?
nice, nice.
Right. I did see it too. Before formally being appraised of it, I did note the social media postings on it, and we find that there the region is quite peculiar in terms of some of the issues that you hear of, right? But
Mhm.
because of timely intervention, we are, and because of the relationship that the region shares with the NDCs and the municipalities, right? We have a timely resolution of the issue also, because we have a
Okay.
very good reporting process, a very good communication.
All right, there are a couple other things that I would probably communicate with you on privately, in regards to some what persons are reporting to be corrupt activities occurring in some of our NDCs. But the last question I'd like to put to you is, a lot of persons do not know that Region 4 is not just the East Coast corridor and the East Bank corridor. It also includes riverine communities. You have
Yes.
active riverine communities in Region 4. And I recall sometime not very long ago, one of your communities was completely shut down because of the high number of COVID-19 cases there.
It's in
Um,
Cuthbert.
right. Is the community better now,
Yes.
or is still under
Actually,
lockdown?
the Region 4 spans from Cane Grove, Mahika, right, way to Moblisa on the highway. Actually, we
Right.
share Moblisa with Region 4, with Region 10, right? And we did have great concerns last year with the St. Cuthbert's area, in which, of course, some persons were tested, and then the teachers were tested, and then some students were tested, and then we had to send that village into a lockdown, and then they had to actually go into a second lockdown. But
Mm.
actually, after the intervention between the region, the Ministry of Marine Affairs, and also the Ministry of Health, right? We would have, and also CDC, we would have been able to shut them down for about a month almost thereabouts, and those numbers disappeared, right? And this is a good case as to what needed to be done, and CDC was able to send in supplies and food and everything for them. We would have been at the regional level, we would have been able to send in some fuel for them, and so we were being a very, it was so well done. They had an issue, right? It was of grave concern to us. We reached out to them. We ensured that everything was taking place. I was talking to the then to show at the time, and we made the necessary intervention, and that was sorted.
Wonderful. I mean, at least you have another measure of success that you can boast about during your brief tenure so far. I like I said, I know that you have to run. Any parting comments before you go? And like you said, we said we're going to be happy to have you back anytime the need arises for you to share information with us, or if we have some concerns, we'll definitely invite you back. But share some. What are your closing thoughts as you prepare to leave?
Well, of course, I must thank you again for having me on your program. It's always a pleasure to be on. It's always a pleasure to share the knowledge and the information as to what is going on regionally with your viewers and all citizens that are tuned in, and everyone internationally as well. I must reiterate to everyone that I am an advocate for persons to go and get the vaccine. And I know that it's a personal decision, but for me, right, it is one of the better methods to go. I keep advocating for persons to always wear their mask when they're out, to social distance, to sanitize, and to avoid gatherings. If you really don't have to be out, please stay inside. At this point in time, I make the call again for proper consultation when it comes to making national policies, right, that directly affect the people of Guyana. And this should not be politically motivated reason for having policies, but policies should be made so that every Guyanese at every single tier could benefit from it. From the man on the street, we must see how he will be benefiting from it, and not indirectly, but directly benefiting from it. I'm still advocating also that we must have stricter COVID measures, and we must find better ways to get to become a bit more economic stable. We are looking at the ongoing raise in cost of living in Guyana, and it's getting to a level of, of being very atrocious in terms of what we have to go through. And we need the timely intervention of all of our policymakers. And the only way through this is together. And I look forward in playing my part in that. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and God's speed, God's blessings on you and your family. Continue to stay safe and continue to do the good work that you're doing in my home region, region number 4. Have a wonderful day and success at your meetings and your endeavors today.
Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful day to you and to our viewers. God bless everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. All right. So that was the discussion with the regional chairman, region number four. I see somebody is indicating that they wish for him to be elevated to the status of a member of parliament. He's the regional chairman. He's not a member of parliament as yet. Probably sometime in the near future. I wanna give a big shout out to, like I always say, when good things are done, I applaud it, I laud it, I recognize it, and that's how we ought to live. I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Barajagio this morning, for the leadership role, the leadership step he has taken. Maybe they're listening now, and our message is getting through finally. And I'm seeing in the newspapers, the Guyana Chronicle, on the 22nd of May edition of the Guyana Chronicle, he has been photographed taking the COVID-19 vaccine. That's what leaders do. I don't recall seeing, well, I could be wrong, but I don't recall seeing the president taking the vaccine, at least a public photograph. If I'm wrong, then I stand corrected. But um, I want to say thanks to Mr. Jagyu for leading, for showing the people of Guyana what is required. All right, we all need to take the vaccine. It's a voluntary thing, but that's the safest way to go. That's the way we're gonna be able to lift Guyana out of the situation. The current figures as of yesterday's date, Guyana, Guyana has recorded 16,000 16,014 positive cases. Region 4, they're saying, has recorded 7,725 positive cases. The national death figure as of yesterday's date is 355. Come on, people. We can't lose other people, man. We cannot lose more people. So your vice president has now shown the public that he's taken the lead. All right. Okay. So I'm being informed that I'm being advised that the president took the vaccine the same time too. So they both took the lead. They've shown the country what needs to be done. We've got to do something to bring the figures down. So let us take the vaccine if you can, if it's available to you. Let us get rid of this nonsense that people are talking about. Um, Again, people still talking about chip being injected in your system, and new world order, and mark of the beast, and a whole heap of ignorance. So let's get rid of that nonsense, man. All right. Finally, I'm calling on the police, the Guyana police force, the members of the police force, to be professional in your conduct. You cannot stop people on the streets of Ghana willy nilly. The laws do not provide for that and allow for that. You cannot stop people willy nilly on the streets of Guyana and just uh, drag them through the mud without telling them why you're stopping them. You've got to let people know why you stop them. You must have a reason for stopping people. You just can't stop somebody and tell them I come to search your vehicle. If you suspect them of committing a crime, you've got to tell them what caused you to be suspicious of them. You can't just look at a vehicle and say, oh, let's stop that one. He looked like he committed a crime. Come on. Stop the nonsense. All right? Let's be professional. And again, I'm going to echo the sentiments of Mr. Seeram. Please, PPP administration, consult with the leaders, respect the leaders at the other levels. That's the only way Guyana will go forward. Respect the leaders at the other levels so that they can encourage people to respect you. If you're already in government, please govern for everybody, man. Govern for everybody. And finally, stop lying. Stop lying. We know people politic from time to time. We know propaganda helps to keep people in government, but don't lie to the people. Come on, you're not speaking to cradle-roll children. You're not speaking to kindergarten children. You're speaking to adults most of the time, and adults have the facts. and they see what's going on. We see what's going on. So stop the lying. And I'm speaking specifically to the two top leaders in the country right now, the president and the vice president. Stop lying, man. Come on. Do the stuff right. You understand? Do the stuff the right way. And the soldiers, well, I'm not going to touch that because I haven't seen the letter, I haven't seen the dossier, I haven't seen the document, I haven't seen the memo that went out. But I don't have any qualms. I understand that when you're in a military installation, there are certain things that they can make you do and all of that. That's a different issue. So we don't want to speak too much about that or to that because we don't have the hard evidence to substantiate any claim that the government said they're going to do whatever, right? All right, I have to run. I have a situation to take care of almost immediately. But don't forget to keep the pot boiling here. Have a good day. We don't know what Wednesday morning will look like for right now. We don't know what Friday morning will look like for right now. We pumping hard to get some top people to tell us exactly what's going on. All right, people are interested in knowing what's going on in the PNC. People are interested in knowing what's going on with the APNU AFC coalition. People are interested in knowing what's going on generally in the country. What are they doing to prevent some of these ill things from happening in Guyana? Um, and bring Ghana to a state of normalcy. People want to know stuff. We want to talk to the right people so that we can get the right information. But it's sometimes it's an uphill task. Help us keep the program on the air. Help us to pay the bills. You're the ones benefit. I don't get a salary. I don't get anything but losing sleep most of the time. But we're grateful for your company. We're grateful for your support. Continue to support the show. You have the financial donation uh, avenues available there: Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Either one, just drop a little something there so that we can keep rolling. In the meantime, and in between time, have a wonderful day. God's richest blessings to you. Stay safe. Take the vaccine, as I said before. Wherever the pop up sites come up, you just run in, take the vaccine, and go. Right? Have a wonderful day. Again, God's richest blessings to you. For now, your host, Branford Burke, saying, I'm out.